Now, we try to keep alive what he wanted to do, this connection. We keep doing these summits. We keep trying to make them better because we want a real connection. We're not coming to Africa just to help Africa. We're coming to work with Africa. Some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life are Africans. They're not poor little people waiting for us to come and help them. They're people we need to learn from. There are ways that we have today that we don't even recognize came from Africa. I'll give you a good example. Anybody who's been to Africa much knows if you go in Africa and you want to find somebody, say I want to find Brother Bai, he's in Ghana somewhere. I can't go and ask for him right away. I have to say, well, my name is Gregory Simpkins. I work with this man. We do these things together. I was supposed to meet him. I didn't. And can you tell me where he is? Oh, okay, he's here. If I just go up and say, do you know Brother Bai? No, because they don't know who I am. My wife and I and my son-in-law and my daughter went down to visit my father-in-law some years ago. And we got turned around in the dark. And a guy pulled up at the gas station where we were. And I remembered that lesson. And I told him who I was. I pointed to my wife. I said, you know, Robert Singateri's daughter. We missed this church where we were supposed to be. Oh, Bob, yeah, okay. If I hadn't told him that, he wouldn't have told me where he was because he wouldn't have known me. That's just one of the many ways we live that come from Africa, that we still have. We just don't recognize it as being an Africanism. We have this link. Those of you sitting in this room, you already know that. You already feel that. You don't really need any legal foundation. You don't need any DNA test to be a part of Africa. But many of our brothers and sisters outside, they need that because they don't understand what we understand. In many cases, they haven't been through what we've been through. So this is a very important movement. The whole idea of dual citizenship wasn't possible during the high period of Pan-Africanism when they were having the Pan-African Congresses. At that time, you only had Liberia and Ethiopia in between periods of being dominated by Europeans that were independent. When Ghana became independent, actually Algeria became independent first, but when in sub-Saharan Africa, when Ghana became independent and you had so many more, one after another become independent, now you have an opportunity to be a part of an independent country, whereas before it was a colony. Now it's more possible than it was then. Our ancestors who came before us, they didn't have that. We are blessed. They built a foundation on which we can now erect a structure. But we have to remember what they taught us. I told you about the dual citizenship that Reverend Sullivan got. Well, you know Isaiah Washington, the actor, took the DNA test, found out he was a Mende from Sierra Leone, and now he's very excited to be a part of Sierra Leone. They gave him dual citizenship. Well, when you have somebody who's famous like Reverend Sullivan or Isaiah Washington, people understand in Africa that they bring attention to the country that might not have been there before. Sierra Leone was certainly glad to get good press because of the Revolutionary United Front and all of the vile things they did. They only got bad press for a long time. Now you have the trial of Charles Taylor in The Hague. That's not bringing any good press either because he's talking about all the terrible things he did. But this has an opportunity to have a connection to people, those who know Isaiah Washington, who might want to help him in his work. And that's a good thing for Sierra Leone. But, you know, that doesn't cover those of us who are not big-time investors. President Wade said a few years ago of dual citizenship, let them come and bring their $10,000 with them. Well, I don't know how many of us here have $10,000 to invest, unless you cash in your retirement. But it shouldn't be about that. If you have a genuine connection and you can do something to be of benefit to a country, however large or small that is, you should be allowed to do that. So now that you have more countries that are independent and thinking about it, more of us have gone to Africa. More of us know African people. We want to be a real part of Africa. Now you have a situation where they have to think about, how do I make this work? Well, they have a number of things to consider in this regard. As you know, a lot of African countries are divided by ethnic tensions. I don't call them tribes, by the way, because the Europeans are tribes. They don't call them tribes, they call them ethnic groups. So I don't call us tribes, I call us ethnic groups too. When they start calling them tribes, I'll start calling us tribes. So these ethnic groups in Africa have this conflict that was initiated to divide and conquer, but it kept on going, and it's still going. One thing we don't want to do is to add to that, because we would, in a sense, be yet another different group coming in. If several hundred of us, for example, decided we wanted to go to Togo, and we bought some land, and we started a town, that would be an American town. Now, many of us have African names. Many of us have gone to Africa. Some of us have lived in Africa. Some of us feel African, but we're American. We think like Americans. We understand Africa better than most, but we're not African. And what will happen is we become then a separate community. They're concerned with that. And I think that one thing that you do is to teach people about the communities that they want to go into, the ethnic groups they want to go into, the countries that they want to relocate to, so that they have a better understanding. We have too many of our citizens who go to Africa, and you have women going to Muslim countries wearing shorts and little tank tops. That's disrespectful. You have to understand where you're going. Now, if you're here in Washington, you want to do that, that's up to you. But if you go to a place where, like in northern Nigeria, you can get hurt doing that. And you need to know that. And other places, there's just different customs people have. If you come to my house, I don't really like smoking in my house. So you have to respect that. If I come to your house and you want me to take my shoes off, I got to respect that. It's your house. We have to learn that. And you have a role in doing that. And I would tell you it's a very important role. Because the more of us who really want to be a part of Africa, they're going to have to learn how to be a real part. And not just an American who happens to be there looking for McDonald's. And too many of us do that. We want to go to Africa, but we want Africa to be like America. And I say, stay home. If you want Burger King, stay home. If you go to Africa, experience Africa. You know, I've had the opportunity to stay in people's homes and eat in people's homes. And, you know, there's some meals I'm not all that crazy about, but, you know, I'm in your home. You're offering me food. I've been in places where there were poor people in villages. I went to refugee camps where I was working for the House of Representatives of the Africa Subcommittee. People gave me their food, and I knew they didn't have that much. So I ate it, because to refuse it is to insult them. They chose to sacrifice to give me something, so I ate it. But, you know, I realize when I'm in their home, I'm in their home. I've learned as much from them as anything they could possibly have learned from me. And this is just something that we need to carry with us. And it's very real. Now, I mentioned to you about the whole South African thing, and that makes people very uneasy about us talking about dual citizenship. I think we have to take that into consideration. And I'm working with Brother Farouk and others from the UNIA and some other folks around the country who are part of the African American Unity Caucus, who have had a long-term interest in dual citizenship. We got involved as a foundation since the beginning in 2002 after Reverend Sullivan died, but actually among the Sullivan organizations, it started right after he got the first dual citizenship in 1991. We've been asked questions regularly about dual citizenship. How do you do it? We couldn't tell you, because very few countries really have a system other than if you have big money or if you have a big name. We can tell you, we did a survey, and we can tell you which embassies have told us that their government has this. But even in a place like Benin, I've been working with the ambassador from Benin for some time. He's been a part of our summit last year and part of a program we've done called Separation and Loss, which talks about what happened to disjoin us from our brothers on the continent. But even in Benin, who every year has a program involving Richmond, Virginia, and Liverpool in England as like a triangle denoting the slave trade, even they don't have a law, because not enough people have asked to have dual citizenship for them to make it worth their while to do it. The other thing is, I don't think they understand how can I put this together such that it